La Lanterna, a spotlight in Italian football, is a podcast that dives into the beautiful game seen from the eyes of two fans from the oldest team in Italy's point of view. My name is Fabrizio Cardone, Canadian and Genovese, together with my friend Matt Killen, an American-born and Genoa fan. Every week, we'll tell you all you need to know about the only team you need to know about, Genoa CFC. Plus, we'll have guests and provide updates from around the magical world of Italian football. Welcome, everybody, to episode number 13 of La Lanterna podcast. Hey, Matt, how are you doing today?
Everybody doing well. Good to see you.
Wow, it is match day one already behind us. And that was such a, oh my God, like, how would you describe it?
I mean, frenetic. There's like everything was going on in that first week of Serie B. There were red cards, you had penalties, you had big teams getting upset, you had some of the smaller teams getting some big wins, a lot of kind of fun performances from different players. It was a really enjoyable weekend.
Actually, funny that you say that, because in Italy, in the olden days, we used to have this thing called La Schedina, which now it's a little bit different, but it's like your betting type of thing.
Okay.
And with some of the upsets, some of the wins in away, not at home, and so on, it would have been a difficult one to catch, guess all the results.
It would have been a really hard one, especially based off of some of the favorites and stuff there. I do think we might want to pay attention to the betting lines that we're seeing here in North America, because I think they're a little bit off right now, at least based on.
Actually, I was talking with a few of our friends that we're going to eventually have also on our episodes, etc. But essentially, what it is, I think, is they're basing it a lot from last year's
right,
I guess, result or whatever that might be. So a lot of the ones that maybe have higher impact are based on the fact that last year they did well-ish, and so on. I don't know. Okay, let's start to say some of the. Okay, let's. Sorry, I like to
go down this. You could go down this every you want to.
Exactly.
Let's recap.
Let's quickly recap match day one. So the opener was on Friday, I think.
Yep.
Friday, August 12th, and we had Parma Bari, which was right off the bat like a very big match.
Yep.
Big name match, anyways, right?
Yeah.
So technically, we had the Bari that basically came back to Serie B, right, with high potential from the background and so on. People are saying, well, it's not going to be super powerful and whatnot, but I saw that there are quite a few. It's a contender, in my opinion.
I mean, and for anybody that's not paying as much attention, Bari obviously have got history, representing a kind of interesting and unique part of Italy, and having a team that had been in Serie A for many years of its existence, had been in Serie C last season, so they just were promoted up. So it's interesting that you say it, because obviously there's the historical thing going on, but they looked the part against a good Parma side. So I don't know. I mean, who knows what could happen?
I honestly have to tell you the truth, and maybe if any of our Parma friends are listening to us, I honestly would have bet my money, not a lot, but I would have bet my money on Parma win.
You would have, or would not have?
I would have.
Yeah,
I definitely would have.
I would have also. I mean, Parma I still think Parma are one of our bigger rivals in winning Serie B outright this season. So I would not have put them. I mean, there were like 3 goals in the first 20 minutes of that game or something. I can't remember.
Unbelievable. It was an intense game. You're right. Like, the score line was like quite strange. Like, you have the first goal of Serie B season 2022-23 after the 4th minute.
Yep. From
Dennis Mann. And then just a few minutes later, like 6 minutes later, you get the tie from a penalty from Antonucci.
Yep.
And then after about 20 minutes after that, there's that totally
capovolgimento, how we say in Italian, like the opposite from Parma being up. They were 2-1 under, which was just like, I believe, so at half an hour within the match. So at almost towards the end of the first half, we were having Pari that was winning 2-1, which was like, what the hell's going on, basically. Great side for Parma, by the way. That's what I'm saying. Like, I can see them fighting for the playoffs for sure, if they keep it up anyways. A whole bunch of yellow cards in the match. And then right at the end of the first half, there is a tie from Mihaila or some, I don't know the pronunciation. And then from there, second half was just containing the ball. It was a little bit more boring on the second half, but nevertheless, it was still an exciting game, very intense, as I was saying. So great opener for Serie B 2022. Actually, no, wait, Serie A2.
There we go. More appropriate. But it wasn't the only match that had some interesting results in it too. I mean, I know we've got a couple of them up, and forgive me if I mispronounce any of these, but Cittadella against Pisa was
Cittadella Pisa.
Thank you. I knew I was going to get that wrong.
It's okay.
It's quite. It's background. He's like
Cittadella Pisa. That was amazing match again. Again, there. No offense to our Cittadella friends, Jake specifically. He'll come on our podcast when we were going to face them. But even though they on the preseason they showed very well, obviously you have from the background this Pisa side that came all the way towards the end of the playoffs from last year, which with Cittadella, just for a small notch, they missed out on it. So you would have said on the paper anyways, it looked like, even though they were playing home at Cittadella, that Pisa would have probably had the better side of it, or at least a tie. While this was a super exciting, obviously Pisa fans were super annoyed and super angry. They opened with their score half an hour in. Then there was a tie just about 10 minutes in. Then there was a missed penalty from Cittadella. So like it was like the match, you said that at the beginning, like a whole bunch of penalties. This was a match of penalties. And then in the second half, there was another penalty again for Cittadella, and they scored 2-1. And right there, you're starting to say, what's going on here, right? And then there was an own goal by Pisa. So that brings Cittadella to 3-1. I was like, oh my God, this is super exciting. And then you get another penalty for Cittadella. So that brings it with our actually former player, Asensio, Raul Asensio. So that brings Cittadella, exactly. Just signed. They signed him just, he was a free agent, I think. 4-1 at the 66th minute. So right there, you're thinking, oh my God, like Pisa, what's going on? But they woke up a little bit, and then at the 90th, 4-2. You mean, it's at the 9th minute, so you're almost at the end. Okay, it's like almost like it's not the gol della bandiera, as we say in Italian. Like it's like the last goal, because they had scored one, and then that match was never ending. At the 98th minute, so 8-minute in injury time, they finally get the third goal, bringing it to final score of 4-3. Oh my God, like 7-goal show.
I mean, follow this one. We were talking earlier. I know it's harder, especially in Canada right now, to follow any of this stuff because you guys aren't getting the broadcast coming in. But File This One is a game I wish I would have actually watched, because looking at the action post-match and seeing some of the stuff that was going on, I was like, that was a good one. That was a good match right there.
Hey, but wait a minute. But you have Hellbiz, so
I don't have an excuse. I should have watched it. I could have watched it.
Can you not still watch it?
Well, that's true. We do have it on demand too. Yeah. So that's right.
So let me know.
I'll look at some of those penalties again. See if there's.
I'm not going to advertise how I watch games because it's just ridiculous. All right. Then we have another great match, Como Cagliari. So we have one of of the group of the trio that went down. So
Yep.
that's Cagliari, which in theory on the paper is like one of the contenders for the straight promotion to Serie A, against this Como, which up until 2 minutes ago was just like this little Cinderella and whatnot, even though it has a huge potential cash flow and whatnot on their side. And then you get this signing of the Superman Fabregas. And so it's like, what is happening to Serie B, right? Buying a third of the club, just to say, hey, wait a minute, this means I want to retire in Como, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to even play for it.
I think there's a lot of that going on. I had no idea that Dennis Wise, I can't remember if we talked about this in the last podcast or not, but an old Chelsea player, I guess, is at least involved in management positions in the club. I don't know if he's like an owner or whatever, but I guess he had something to say, and he turned Fabregas's ear. I mean, it's a good get from him. He was playing for Monaco a season ago, so
absolutely.
Yeah, who would have thought, right?
That match was quite clear that it was going to go for Cagliari. However, the opener was from Como.
Mm-hmm.
So about 20 minutes in from Mancuso. So that was 1-0 for Como. So that already there, another surprise again.
Yep.
All of the rest of the game, Como was winning 1-0 up until 3 minutes in injury time of the second half. So the 93rd minute.
Wow.
Then Pereiro scores the tie for the tie goal for Cagliari, which was, still you could see the quality there. They were doing maybe a little bit of catenaccio, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. But nevertheless, I think Como read very well the match in order to contain Cagliari, which still, it's still at the beginning. They lost some important players, but, with still a lot of important players there too.
Yeah, I know. I will bite my tongue. I feel like the result we saw with Como and Cagliari, we're going to see more often in Serie B, where you've got, one of those contending teams playing against, probably should win this match type of a match. And then you see at least a draw come out of it. I think it's going to come to us before too long. I'm not putting it out there in the universe, but it's going to happen at some point. So, good for us, I guess. But the first week is the first week, You can't ever make it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. And that's what everybody is telling us. Like the Serie B is tough because of that. Like you get a lot of small teams that are willing and are able to smother a little bit, I guess, the bigger teams, and with ties and sometimes with upsets too.
Just get a little scrappy win or nick a goal and then just sit back or something like that.
Exactly. So the next match I wanted to quickly touch upon was Palermo-Perugia, another big return for one of the more professional leagues, which is Palermo.
Yeah.
Similar story to Bari, so themselves too, from past history problems, financial and whatnot, and they finally got promoted to Serie B. So on the radar ourselves to see, okay, it is a strong contender, whatnot. Didn't do a major market, the transfer market itself,
yep.
But nevertheless, it was a nice passeggiata, as we say in Italian, for a walk in the park sort of thing. The on their side was the fact that on the 23rd minute there was already a red card for Perugia, right. So that brought them to 10 men. A couple minutes, I think, from that moment there, a couple minutes after, there was a penalty for Palermo, bringing them to 1-0. So that was the first half, essentially, in a nutshell. Then in the second half, a couple of yellow cards, and then the second score for Palermo, bringing it, closing the match just for themselves, just a clean sheet at 2-0. So
and
that was
again still another side, like you mentioned before, promoted, and maybe Perugia were more of a mid-table side last season, but still, it shows, especially, I mean, you see this a lot. I think it tends to happen frequently. I know I'm using a pretty bad comparison by looking at the English second division and the championship, but there's typically like a pretty big gulf between the teams that get promoted from League One, their third league, into the teams that have kind of still remained in the championship, and you're already seeing a lot of the promoted teams come up and immediately have a good result. So I think it speaks to competition, and also some of these clubs have history to them too.
Yes, I was going to say the same thing. It reminds me a little bit when Genoa was in Serie B and got promoted to Serie A. That was a year that was the most difficult for Genoa to come back to Serie A. That was 2007 or 2008 or the 2008, 7-8 year or something, or 6-7
season that got into promotion 2008, I think,
with Gasperini. And that was a year where you had both Napoli and Juventus in the Serie B. So what I'm trying to say is like, you get major teams, like for different reasons. For Juventus was Calcio Scommesse, was one of the only times that they got caught. I shouldn't say that too out loud, but and then you have Napoli, which had the same sort of fate that happened to Palermo and to Bari, with financial issues and so on, and that's where they were just trying to come back up. And that's what happened. So the Juve was the winner of that championship of that year. Then Napoli, and then Genoa was the third one. There was no playoffs at that time, so it was a little bit easier, I guess. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no. So that's what I'm trying to say. To your point, is a lot of teams with history. So you have Palermo and you have Bari, which are definitely two bigger teams compared to. You can also see it from the size of the cities as well as the size of the stadiums. That shows you what they were at some point, anyways.
Right.
For the next team, we have Ascoli Ternana. So, and the unfortunate side is the two teams from Umbria both lost. So the one before was Perugia. Now we have Ternana from Terni. Ascoli wins a nice 2-1 against Ternana. Mm-hmm. Their both goals come in the first half an hour from Ascoli side, and only in the second half Ternana is able to score the Gol della Bandiera, as we call it, just to shorten the distance in order to try to catch up to them. Mm-hmm. Next game was Benevento Cosenza. I'll leave that to you.
Yeah, our friends in Cosenza got a nice little win against Benevento as well. So a 1-0 match was kind of how this one ended. Didn't catch most, again, this one in particular, but it seemed like their keeper had another good performance. He had a great one the week before in the Coppa Italia first round. But happy for our friends in Cosenza. I mean, we're hoping they stay up in Serie B this season. It's always good to start the campaign with 3 points. And Benevento are another side. Their issues in the offseason, I suppose, with ownership aside, you'd expect them to be among, those teams fighting to be for sure in the top half of the table, of not trying to kind of get one of those last promotion places. So.
Absolutely. It's exactly the same to the opposite. There's a couple things more to be added on the commentary about the Serie B. Is if in Serie A you have a huge gap between the 6 sisters, mm-hmm. the 7 sisters, and the mid-table, and usually the mattress, the squadre materasso, how we call them, that are the relegated ones and so on, like what happened to Genoa for the last few years anyways. But there's usually a huge gap. Like when you see the spots for Europe, so up until the 6th spot to the 7th and 8th and whatnot, there's usually several points. But apparently in Serie B, the gap is quite very slim. In fact, if I recall well, Cittadella just did not make it for 1 or 2 points at the very most to get into the playoffs. And the same thing happens for the playouts. So at the bottom, where, for example, our friends from Cosenza were in the playouts, and they managed to go through. And again, there were like just 1-2 points difference from the 5th to last, among the 2 from the playouts type of thing. But yeah, super upset for Benevento. We've faced them in Coppa Italia. You could see the difference in quality between the two teams. It was Coppa Italia was the first match in their first half, I guess, of August itself. But I was expecting perhaps at least a little bit more of I don't know, like a battleship or whatnot. But no, I was so proud of our friends from Cosenza. Nothing against our Benevento friends as well, but definitely great kudos to Raffaele and our friends from Cosenza. And then we had another match, Brescia Südtirol.
Yes. So another, I think Südtirol, this one kind of went, I think, more to expectation too. You saw Brescia win against Südtirol. Südtirol being, I think they might have the smallest budget of any team in Serie B, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's a small club, of course. It's from a region way north in Italy, on the border of Austria, pretty much, in a beautiful area up there. But yes, Brescia, I think, maybe too strong for the side. And if I'm not mistaken, too, I think Marco had explained they're in the middle, Südtirol, of a managerial change too, with that manager from that team leaving and joining Venezia, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct. So yeah, you're right. Absolutely. Like Venezia got the coach that was from Südtirol. So Südtirol is now in a new type of format with new coach and so on. So it's also, they didn't do a major transfer market as well, because, as you said, the budgetary and so on.
Yep.
So I'm rooting for them because I've been in that area. I really love that area. That does not mean that that's why you should be rooting for a team. But
but I get it.
It's also a nice representative from Trentino, which is still like important. Like it's the first time they aren't ever in Serie B. And it's important to see them. Like, people can make fun of them to say, oh, they're like the small teams like Cittadella and so on. Look at Cittadella. Like they've been very close to promotion for the last 2 or 3 years. And look how small they are. But that does not mean that they cannot make it.
It's all about that, well-run clubs can go a long way in many leagues, not less Serie B. So,
and then another upset, Modena Frosinone. Personally, I thought Modena was going to have the win, but at the end, Frosinone made it through. They even scored at the half an hour in, and then since then, it was just a whole bunch of yellow cards, and that they just kept the game. It was an away match too, right? So I was expecting Modena with their new logo, with their Canarino, to be able to do something, but I guess it wasn't their day.
Yeah, this one would have been a coin flip for me too, because I think Modena also, they are among the newly promoted sides as well. And there's a bit of history, I suppose, maybe certainly less so actually than Palermo and Bari, but still, it's a side that, who knows, they could still do a little bit of damage. So anyway, pretty eventful Serie B match, and we haven't even talked about Genoa Venezia yet.
So. No, just the last one before I get to that, because they're going to be one of our Suno opponents as well. And it was a quite surprise for everyone. Spal 1 and Regina 3. So that's true. Quite a great win away. I would say not necessarily an upset, but it was a very clear with our friend, not that it's our friend, but everybody knows him. That's why I'm saying our friend, Pippo Inzaghi, which is the manager there. And he's doing quite well. He was badly done so with the match against Sampdoria at the Coppa Italia, where they were basically, should I say, robbed from the win, right? With that sort of goal that was given to Sampdoria. But anyways, long story short is they did a very well match and they won. Venezia Genoa. So let's quickly talk about that one.
Yeah, big first game of the season. Interesting to see the starting lineup that Blessing had trotted out there. I'm curious to get Fabri, your thoughts on the team and in the selection and how we had shaped ourselves at the beginning of the match. I think some players in here were not maybe as a shock. Portanova, Badel, Frendrup, Goodmanson, all kind of playing more in the midfield. Ekuban and Coda. I don't know exactly the formation that we used in the match, if it was a 4-4-2 or 4-2-3-1 or how it looked, but we certainly.
So the opener was definitely a 4-4-2 in my opinion, or 4-2-2-2, whatever you want to call that. Two in the middle. But you had Ekuban and Coda as your straight forwards, and then in the midfield and wings, but midfield wing type of thing, you had from the left to the right, Goodmanson, Frendrup, Badel, and Portanova.
Yep.
If I have to say something is, and we're going to say that throughout, I believe a lot of people were not super impressed with the transfer. We said that already, but the transfer market from last January, they have been probably the most solid responses and players that we are having right now.
I think it's a really good point. Like there was a huge amount of comments saying, we're bringing in these players from who even knows what team they're playing on. They didn't, a lot of these guys did not have the best start to the season, but I mean, let's focus on Goodmanson a little bit, because I mean, he was absolutely instrumental in this game, scoring the first goal and then setting up the second later on in the match. Maybe we're skipping ahead a little bit too much, but he was a massive part of the team's contribution. And I think you have to point to his inclusion in the side as one of the reasons why we kind of continue to show our strength.
No, you're absolutely right. He was voted the best player of the match from Genoani Resta, our mothership or partner that we have. I still believe that both him and I would put almost at par. Also, Frendrup. Like I was listening to the Telecronica, to the commentator. It was actually the Italian one, so I'm telling you half of how I saw the game. But anyways, and they said the man with 7 lungs, for how much the guy was running back and forth. Like you could still see him in any. Sometimes you'd see him on in the center. Sometimes you see him on the left. Sometimes you saw him on the right. This kid, player, whatever you want to call it, he was just fantastic. And the same goes for Goodmanson in a different way, because it's a different type of approach to the match itself. But no, both of them, I would put them at par as VIP for the game.
Well, they fit kind of like that pressing style that Blessin likes to do. And Frendrup, I mean, it's always fun to watch him play like that, because he kind of had that style last season too, where he's just really, really a part of you always see him part of the play, even if he's not actually on the ball, like he's always kind of doing something. And by the way, I think I mistakenly had mentioned that Goodmanson scored. I think Portanova actually had the first goal. But Goodmanson was really key in setting up, I think, a lot of our attacking play throughout that match. And it was exciting to see that.
So wasn't that interesting though? It's you know why you probably fell for that thing about thinking it was Goodmanson? Because in my opinion, it was identical to the goal that Goodmanson had done against Benevento in Coppa Italia. They were like both like not identical to the fact that Portanova was like 100% like almost by himself running towards the goal, etc. Right. While Goodmanson just a little bit left, but they both fletched towards the right. And it was so angled to the point that it was super difficult to get it into the goal. And they both did it almost identical. It was fantastic.
I remember he kept kind of cutting it and it was a difficult way in still, but
it's like, is he going to put it in? Just put it in, man.
Yeah. There was a feeling there for a second. I was like, did we just lose the window? Like how the fuck do we do that? But
yeah, because the more you get in the corner and the less it becomes wide too, right? So it's like, just kick it, man. And he did. Yeah, that was fantastic. And then, so comments on this on the tie from Venezia.
Well, it was a little bit against the run of play. I felt pretty bad for Josep Martinez on this one. So this was, if I remember correctly, the play, it was a free kick. The ball had come in. I can't remember who had served it up from Venezia, but it was one of those ones where it was kind of a quick play. It was probably hard so we didn't really talk about this, but Josep Martinez was our starting keeper. The ball comes in, maybe he doesn't see it very well. He gets in front of it, but he doesn't actually have the opportunity to catch it. So it kind of spills out, and then Venezia come up and clear the ball in the back of the net and even the matchup. And at that period of time, I mean, my opinion anyway, we were really on top of the match in terms of being the more aggressive side, being much more often in their kind of final third. And I don't think it was just a case of us being in the final third and they were waiting for a counterattack. I really felt like we were breaking them down and finding opportunities. We had more shots on goal, I think, at halftime. than they did. But it was, I think, as soon as that foul was conceded, there was a little bit of a feeling of like maybe this could be something. And it was relatively late in the first half, if I'm not mistaken, either. So it was one of those ones that just kind of was like, man, did we have to do that?
You mean the tie?
For the tying goal, yes.
No, actually that happened.
It was actually the second half.
Second half.
Yes.
It was not even from the beginning. In fact, actually, let me just add one part to that. The second half started very badly. Yeah. I shouldn't say very badly because it wasn't that bad, because obviously you're going to have a Venezia side that's going to say, hey, wait a minute, I don't want to lose. I'm at home.
Yeah, this is a fair point. We haven't really, yes.
You have to look at it from that perspective as well. But you also have to see the other part, which I'm continuously seeing a little bit this trend with Genoa, which the first half is like super gung-ho, like you're gegenpressing at 100%. But then in the second half, they sit a little bit. What do you think?
I mean, you're right. The energy was not the same at all. And this guy, I think he pronounced his name Janssen or something. I think he was like a halftime substitute for Venezia. I mean, he was all over the pitch as soon as he came on. And those first few minutes, they were getting a lot more opportunities on our side of things. And I don't know if it's because, mentality wise, players are thinking differently. It was a successful first half. We were really on top of it. I don't know if it's like you're kind of saying a little bit, possibly because players are getting tired. But they definitely felt more like, okay, we're in a little bit more of a match now. I mean, it still felt like we were maybe slightly edging on the top of that situation and having still opportunities, but it looked for a little while like, it wouldn't be surprising if Venezia got another goal or got a goal back. And eventually they did via that free kick.
No, that's right. That's what my fear was, because that's what happened several times. And that's where I was getting a little bit frustrated too, because with this damn amazing first half, I don't want it to get all, thrown out the window. And then what happened was essentially, another thing that I wanted to add was Venezia. Like a lot of people said, Coda was underperforming. He was not his day. I personally think that Venezia did an amazing job, too much of a good job for that matter, to basically marcare, as we say in Italian, Coda. Sometimes you got him with one defender against him, sometimes two, and sometimes even three. So they totally annulled him.
I think it's a really good observation. I mean, I wouldn't have said that he had obviously it was a quote unquote quiet game from him. He wasn't the force at all that we saw in the Coppa Italia in the preseason in terms of either creating or getting on chances or even kind of making runs that would open up play for others. But I mean, at the same time, you're right. You saw those defenses keying on him, and then the opportunities were opening for us a little bit, in some cases, a little bit more out wide, where we had Portanova and Goodmanson. So, I agree. I didn't look to me as like an objectively bad performance, but it was one where, it wasn't the strong set we've seen before.
No, absolutely. And actually that, in my opinion, so a lot of people are actually pointing the finger to the poor Ekuban and so on. But I personally think that it was a great, my opinion. So, leave it at that. But I think that Ekuban did a great job, a great game. He was a lot more free because the concentration was more around Coda. So a lot of the actions were starting from him. So even though he had a couple of chances that did not actually work out, obviously, as we know, one was like very close. He still opened up a lot of actions and a lot of plays that went up to the top, and that was still very important too, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of why the formation had confused me a little bit too, because he was in this position at times that felt like he was in this attacking kind of advanced position, but in the center of the pitch. And we've seen him before sometimes where he's out wide and kind of running all the way on like the right side into almost like nowhere. And then maybe he's bringing the ball back across or something. And he definitely seemed like centrally he was much more involved in the play. And okay, sure, he should have probably scored a goal. Fine. But at the end of the day, I'm with you on that one. I thought that there's a reason why also he was on for as long as he was in the game.
Absolutely. No, well, you know what? This is my sense, my feeling, at least that I have. I think that Blessin really, really points, has a lot of faith in him, and he's pointing a lot of resources from the front, not mostly, a lot also on Ekoban as well. So it's not only Coda, but I think he's pointing a lot. He's really counting a lot on Ekoban, and that's quite obvious because I still think that Ekoban has that. Physical aspect that is very highly demanding from Blessin, and I think that he can deliver it.
Yeah, I think it's you're spot on. Again, I'm giving you your plaudits today, Fabri, so enjoy it, I guess. But but you see that every single time that he plays, and I know that he gets whistles every now and then because he'll overhit a ball or he'll his finishing.
People want the goal, right?
Yeah. But I mean, this is exactly the style that Blessin is trying to implement, and it's a player. To your point, he's capable of doing it for longer periods of time. And he's not just a marathon man that's running up and down the pitch the whole time. He is involved in the team play itself. So, I was also happy to say, when he was subbed off to see Yeboah come on, just to have Yeboah get a chance. But at 72nd minute, you're not saying, man, this guy had a bad game, he's getting yanked early. Not at all. This guy's been running hard for 72 minutes. He needs to be subbed,
Well, wait, look at what happened to Yeboah. So now let's go to the actual score.
Yeah.
The second score that Genoa did. So that was Yeboah from a beautiful assist from the Goodmanson that we just mentioned before.
Yes.
Beautiful goal, beautiful. I don't know even if they managed to calculate how much the kid had jumped, because that jump
replay was crazy.
Oh my God. Like when they talk about Cristiano Ronaldo, I'm not going to compare it to him, obviously, but how he did that score against Sampdoria, so tall, so high up in the air. I think it was pretty high too. I'm not saying it was comparable, and that, forgive me for comparing the two, but it was just to say how tall he jumped. It was a very tall jump. And it just was a perfect assist. And that was fun. The point was, everybody was talking badly and behind Yeboah forever, saying the worst purchase of Spurs and 6.5 million thrown out the drain, or stuff like that. Similar to Ekoban, it was just whenever he came on, he brought a fresh breath of air. He brought inventive, fresh, open, exciting, running, again, Blessin style, right? Yep. And finally, I guess and I think it's going to happen to Ekoban as well, but finally he got this goal, and now he's super saint on earth, right?
So all the videos of him with the celebration afterwards and stuff. Yeah. The stirring the pot or whatever that celebration was. But
that's the espresso, Matt.
Oh, this is espresso.
It's the cucchiaino and the espresso for the espresso.
I like that a lot better. I hope that's what he was going for. We hear a lot of Ben singing Yeboah's praises, I feel like, for the last several episodes, because he always got involved when he came in, and he just didn't have the finishing product, and it kind of felt we just need him to score. He basically dunks on this Venezia player when he gets that goal, and that was a pretty quick succession too. I don't think there were too many minutes that had gone by before we conceded, and to see us come back and score was really important, because we talked about it before the game. This is one of those matches. It felt like if it went the wrong way, if we didn't win, especially, then you get people starting to question the club. You have the same comments that we're just talking about that are now being reversed about Yeboah and other players. But you know how crazy it is, where people are saying we've not bought enough players. We still got all these guys that are shit from January, that. All that stuff comes right back, and to kind of immediately respond was huge. So
absolutely. And that's the typical the Mogugno, as I already taught you. If you don't remember, it's that complaint of the Genovese. It's quite typical. They're never happy, and they're talking already about issues here and there. No matter where even if there isn't one, they're gonna say that there is one. But no. So the goalie, I want to talk about it more, if it's okay with you, with our guest that is going to come in shortly.
Yeah.
But the topic of the goalie, if I might say. The only thing I wanted to say, which the final point of the match, which is not important because it doesn't really do anything other than the fact of it could have happened at the first or the 10th or the whatever minute. In fact, it happened like on the 4th, 5th minute of injury time on second half. So another semi type of pasticcio, like a mess from the goalie.
Yes.
Not as bad as the goal itself, but and then the score from Venezia. So we thought it was a 2-2. Saint VAR, I'm going to call it from now on. Saint VAR. A lot of people complain about it, but I think it's still bringing good value, especially when this one is cut dry. Like there's no interpretation here, like certain other things, but this is not interpretation. This is just given facts.
I remember.
And it was pure offside. So it's, obviously the goal was disallowed, and it ended thankfully 2-1.
Well, wasn't your stomach like at the floor though for a second when that?
Don't go there.
Like it was this feeling when we get to 1-1, and you're right. I mean, I remember the tenseness of the second half and kind of being like, all right, we're not in it in the same way we were in the first half. They get kind of a really, I would call the goal that they scored a lucky goal. I think most keepers probably would handle that.
Yeah.
Saying that, my opinion. But they got the goal. And it started to feel like, are we going to be paying for this again? We have the response. And it's like, all is well. We're going to end with 3 points. And then what seemed like the last kick of the match, and you just have this thing, and it's like, oh my God, did we just draw this match? And it looked like that it happened. It was this kind of crazy play again. Again, it was from a free kick. And it was in, I think, kind of a similar-ish position, actually, on the pitch. The ball had come in, and there was kind of this whole like ruckus around the. I don't think you call it a goal line. I don't know what you call it in football. I guess maybe you could call it a goal line. But Martinez makes a decent save, but again, there's stuff going on around him. There's other things. The ball kind of bounces back, and eventually, to your point, it's a player that's pretty well offside that ends up getting his kind of parried ball and putting it back into the net. And so there's kind of like a couple of bounce play. I can't remember if it hit off like another defender or something after that first initial reaction, but it seemed to take a really long time. And all you really see when that happens at the time is the ball's in the back of the net, and the Venezia fans, who, by the way, were quiet for most of the match. I'm sorry, Marco, but you could hear the Genoa chants the entire broadcast if you're listening to it. We were singing along with
the entire. It seemed like we were in Genova. Did you see the choreography? It was like phenomenal.
We were audibly hearing and saying the songs that they were singing because you could make them out that clearly. But you saw all of that stuff happening at the end of the game. It's like, oh my God, did we just get a draw? And we're about to leave. We were at the bar. We were about to leave the bar all upset and angry. And yes, thank goodness for Saint VAR. I can't believe I've ever said those words out loud. But after that experience, I'm happy that there's. In fact, we even had the conversation. Daniela was saying, "Is there VAR in Serie B?" And yep, we found out there's VAR in Serie B.
2 years, yeah.
So
okay, so 3 points. Match day 1 is gone. Fantastic. We're first or sixth, depending on the goal differential. That's important. You just cannot play catch up in Serie B. That's the important thing that I've learned.
yes.
So the important thing is to win these. This is a direct confrontation against Venezia side that is obviously going to be growing with a new manager and so on. They did show a very nice show in the second half. Mm-hmm. So at the end, overall, if you look at points, did we deserve? I think so. But I don't think Venezia is the end of it. And I think they're still going to have a decent and if not good season.
I think they're going to have a great season. And we were talking yesterday. I mean, they had another signing from the Bundesliga, and I will also butcher his name, so I probably won't say it, but Poyan Piano or whatever. I don't know. A guy from Leverkusen, another attacking player. You've got a lot of guys in that squad that I think could be interesting. So we'll see.
And then we still have this telenovelas, as we can call it, with Aramo, which is still a question mark. Is he going to come or not?
I just love the quote from the Venezia manager, like, well, he will not be in the squad for obvious reasons or whatever. And it's just like,
what's going on?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go for a quick commercial break, and we'll have a super special guest in our second half.
My name is Fabrizio Cardone, and I approve this message.
Welcome back for the second half of our La Lantana podcast, episode 13. We have a super special guest, don't we, Matt?
Yes, very, very special guest. I'm honored to have Francesco from Genoa Club Miami, newly formed Genoa Club Miami, and the leader of the club down there. So welcome, Francesco.
Welcome, Francesco.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely, no, it's fantastic for us to have you as our guest. I guess the first question, which is quite normal to say, tell us more about your club, who you are, how was it, where did the idea come from, and all that nice fancy stuff about clubs that are for Genoa but abroad.
Well, everything started almost like a year ago, basically, because since the rumors became reality about the interest from buyers, which the headquarters here in Miami, together with my friend Pietro Scaffitto, we started discussing, like joking on WhatsApp, like, what about we start a Genoa club here in Miami? And it's like, why not? And then out of nowhere, in a couple of days, we tried to organize how to do it. We started sending emails in everywhere in Genoa, trying to understand how it could be done and what was needed. And thanks to Associazione Club Genoani, they helped us to basically finalize this dream of this crazy tour that we were starting. And we were excited to start this experience because indeed exciting first of all because we were getting rid of the previous owner.
Yep.
Thank God. And because we were curious. I mean, on paper, we were talking about a very powerful buyers. And of course, the dream behind the club itself was also to find an excuse to eventually meet them one day.
I like it. That's clever, Francesco.
No, just to give some context for whomever is listening to that does not know the whole entire story about Genoa. So correct me guys if I'm wrong, because I want to forget the past, but essentially we had this previous owner for over 13, 14 years, something like that. So this was the infamous Mr. Preziosi, which almost actually bought or got the team with peanuts because it was almost close to bankruptcy, brought it to almost to stardom with the days of Milito, Thiago Motta, and so on, Borriello and whatnot, with Gasperini, etc., all the way to these dull, boring, and almost bankrupt style of seasons, especially the last three, where it was obvious that he just wanted to give up. So the new owners that are in fully fledged right now are called the 777 Partners, which were this group that decided to purchase the Genoa CFC, and their headquarters are in Miami. So, Fra, did you have a chance actually to meet or speak with any of the owners?
So, for what it concerned the meet in person, we had the place where we meet usually, not to watch just the game because they are not set up yet for that, but we usually meet there for have like a discussing about Genoa is at the restaurant Batu Belin. And the owner is Giulio
hold on one second, Fra. So Batu Belin, for who doesn't know Genovese, how can you describe that? So I'm going to beat my Willie, essentially. The literal translation means that, but essentially what it means is I don't give a flying.
Yes, basically like in Genoa dialect. And it was a fantastic idea to decide to start meeting there, because that's the restaurant where actually with Pietro we sit down in the past October 2021, and we decided to take this decision to found the club. And as I was saying, the owner of the Batu Belin had the chance more than once to actually meet Mr. Wonder in person. Actually, in one of the occasion, it was before a game they were going to watch at the office. He passed by Batubelin to get some focaccia to bring to the office, so to get ready to watch the game and bring some food. And it was the occasion in which I also took a couple of pictures, which we posted as well on the Genoa Club Miami Instagram page. For what I concern myself, I actually sent to the general email many months ago an email to just present the Genoa Club. And Mr. Wonder in person replied to me, and it was pretty much amazing. The moment was I was like, wow, like I was thinking like eventually someone on behalf of 777 wouldn't answer to the email. And through email, for what we discussed here and there in a couple of exchanges, he has shown very much interest to, first of all, to meet us, and an idea of the club as well here in Miami.
Love it.
That's amazing. Like you were starstruck, essentially.
Yes.
Did you have a question, Matt?
No, I mean, it must have been a real thrill kind of getting that connection. And there you go. There's the actual picture that Fabrizio show right now.
I missed it. Sorry.
So today, how do you guys typically watch matches at Batubelin, or how do you guys kind of gather to watch Genoa in Miami?
So basically here, until we were in Serie A, basically through the application that we use in the United States, Paramount Plus, we had a couple Italian restaurants that they used to indeed stream the match as well.
Nice.
Not at the Batubelin itself. It was another restaurant, it was called the Salumeria 104.
Okay.
And we start gathering there like every time that we could. Indeed, here people that are like part of the club, they're like from Miami and not, because the cool part that as soon as they created the club, we got a connection from a supporter from even Cayman, Walter, or a lot of people from Genoa. They used to come here in Miami for work. They don't actually live here, but because they are Genoa supporters, and they pass to Miami, through Miami, like many times during the year, they subscribe to the club. So anytime we had eventually some guests passing by, even from Genoa Club New York, actually, we had Riccardo Sallo.
There you go.
Passing by once. So at the moment we plan to have this next match in another location, because as you know, it's no longer on Paramount Plus. We have Albits, and last game in Serie A we watched it in an Irish pub, which was, I believe, the coolest location we ever found, because it was it was closer to the experience to watch like a game like in a pub, like rather than in a restaurant, because like less fancy, let's say.
Yes.
Actually, it's a better environment.
Yes, absolutely. And the coolest part, like you think about an Irish pub open like at 8 in the morning and people already there drinking beer. So just
I know, incredible.
To give an idea of the environment.
This is one of our selling points in New York too. It's like, oh, come on, with Genoa, we'll have also some focaccia with the beer this time. That's how we're doing it.
Absolutely. So the plan is to talk with the owner of the pub and see if eventually will be available to actually stream through this application. I don't know permission-wise what's the deal here in the United States, but that's the plan, because we actually like to gather together as much as we can. Anytime we can watch the game together.
It's always fun to be in person, and it's fun too. You guys will probably see it too if you get back at that bar. You'll probably find you're louder than all the other supporters groups that are in the same bar rooting for somebody else. So you'll turn some heads, I'm sure.
Oh yes, I mean you could tell, like, because there it was that last game. It was like again in the morning, like before lunchtime, and as I said, like even though people was there already drinking beer, they were still looking at us like, "What's wrong with you?" Like I was like, "Well,
well, let me start."
It's a long story.
You just hear a bunch of like guttural noises from this corner, and go on. Love it.
And so, Francesco, if I'm not mistaken, you and I, how we actually met was based on the fact that I was a guest to one of your podcasts. So tell us all about your podcast. with our director in the background that everybody already knows, which is Stefano.
This is, by the way, Stefano's 1200th shameless pitch. So I'll just get that out of the way. Like, Stefano, we love you. This is an amazing podcast. We got to get the message out there, but I have to give you a hard time about it too. So
supervising and watching over us.
Yes, exactly.
So the podcast Genoani Resta was the amazing idea that Stefano Caggiero indeed had at the end of last year, and we started gather like some idea, and at the beginning was just throwing there, inviting, like talking with me, and then they start talking again with Matteo, like what do you think if we start doing something like that, and it started like as a friendly idea, just let's see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And they kept being developed in an amazing way, because basically the more you're involved in the podcast, the more you feel part of something that is amazing, because you basically reach out of Genoa supporters around the world. And we know better than anyone else that when you live far away from Italy, far away from Genoa, far away from your Genoa on the stadium, it's hard to try to connect and have a community which you used to do, like in your own town, and discuss about the team, how it's going and everything. So that basically had the opportunity for us to learn a lot from all our guests, including yourself, indeed, Fabrizio, to understand like how you live your life outside Italy, in the country you're living in, how you live your passion for Genoa. And in many occasions, like with the topics go everywhere else, including the food, of course, because we never leave that behind as Italians. But it was been like a great opportunity. I still thank a lot Stefano to including me in this journey, and which is amazing every time.
A journey indeed, and it's actually super honorable to see a podcast during COVID time. Not saying that it was an invention from Stefano, but definitely I think if I recall well, it was something that kind of was like going through his mind and said, okay, let's start to do that, and in a way bringing all of us, Genoani, Italian, Genovesi, let's say all around the world together. Like this chat is going on since now. You guys are what, at episode, what is it, 25, 26, something like that? Yes, and so 27. Thank you, Mr. Stefano. And it's crazy because you see everybody talking and everybody has their own opinion, and it's like, and the Mugugno, as I mentioned to you before, and then when they're happy about something, and finally we won, etc. Stuff like that. But it's just beautiful, differently to what our I'm going to call it mandate match. Should we call it mandate or just desire? Our desire is a little bit different. So yeah. It's the searching, fetching, inviting, convincing English-speaking people, more so, from all around the world to join this love affair. This I actually, I'm going to leave it to Matt. He's our example.
I mean, I think it's related, but in a different way. I mean, obviously, like I'm not from Genoa. I did not have that background of growing up there or having childhood friends where half of the school was Sampdoria, half was Genoa, and that whole experience.
What did you say? Don't say that word.
Exactly. But it's about kind of bringing folks who are interested in football or in Italian football, or maybe in Genova, or some kind of intersection of those things, and bringing them into the club. And it feels like tiny pieces at a time. We had a lot of people at the bar on Sunday say they're now Serie B fans and Genoa fans because they're watching us lose our shit when we finally won the match for the first time in what felt like forever. But little by little, hopefully we're helping kind of other people see the community that is being a Genoa fan and everything that kind of goes into that. So different angle, different kind of person we're trying to bring in, but a similar overall idea, I think, is that connection.
Absolutely. I agree. So if you don't mind, I wanted to bring in the topic that we had at the end of the first half of our podcast. So the topic, and good that we also have Francesco here with us, just to see also different perspectives from I guess both Matt's and mine perspective type of thing, and also what he thinks. So Martinez. So this is the goalie that Blessin or management has decided to be our number one goalie, to the surprise of everyone, mind you, because up until then, it seemed to be obvious that it was Semper, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah.
Even though when the signing of Martinez came, everyone started to scratch their head saying, wait a minute, it's almost at par as level, if not maybe a notch, a little bit higher in perspectives per se. So we said it's not necessarily a good thing to have competition in-house, especially among goalies, because it's one of those things very hierarchical where you're supposed to have like the major one and then your second goalie, good or not, it has to never be equal or better than your first goalie, usually, right? That is. So what do you guys think about the performance that we have seen him now in 2 games, so the Coppa Italia match and the match they won against Venezia? I guess, yeah, start. You can start, Fra.
But in my opinion, I mean, first of all, like the goalkeeper itself is a role in the team that is fundamental because it's part of the basis of the team. So if the goalkeeper is weak, the whole team goes down because he's basically the one that is pushing the team. Yep. Okay, it's like this. You need to see that the most anger you need to see is from the goalkeeper. When you see that, it means that the team follows that. Right. So the goalkeeper needs to be an important point of start. Like in this season, Martinez per se, what I saw, he had a couple. He had like few good defense. But also it showed like a little bit indecision on the moment we got the goal, etc. The way he was getting out with a fist in front of like so many from Venezia last time, like he did with Benevento. It's not the way that you actually to defend, like being secure, like and sure what you're doing. So, and I don't want to say that it's not the guy that is not going to grow, etc. Eventually, it's still bad. Like it would be Semper, because at the end of the last season, we saw a couple of good games from Semper. We were like, wow, Semper, like all the life we want to see, like right there, ready to start. But to be honest with you, I believe it's important that Blessing look at the situation and trying to understand what's the real scenario for the whole team, not just the goalkeeper. So he is the one that needs to decide. He's the one that he sees that when he's there training, and if he decided to have Martinez, I believe is related to the performance that is following since they prepare that.
Yeah.
What do you think, man?
Ricardo and Daniela and I were talking about it after the match too. And I think there's like a couple of things, like if you're Blessing right now, you kind of can't go away from Martinez now because you sort of lose the player, if after like a game or 2 games, you say, okay, now we're going back to Semper and you're maybe going to be the cup guy or whatever, that you probably lose all confidence in this goalkeeper. And you may as well have another goalkeeper that you bring in instead, who's the 3rd guy in line. He may as well play. So you kind of have to keep rolling with him for now. And I guess we have to assume that there's something that Blessing and company really like about him, because it seemed like this was 100% Semper's job to lose. And there was reason why Semper would be our starting keeper. And so we have to trust, I suppose, that the Blessing and company are seeing something that they prefer in the training grounds and in those moments that we're not seeing the team together that they really like about Martinez. So
also, because another factor that gave surprise to a lot of people was the fact that Martinez, if I'm not mistaken, is a straight loan, maybe with the option of a buyback, while Semper is on our books. So it's our player. And another factor to sort of like on Semper's defense type of thing, Semper had a decent year 2 years ago now, but with Chievo, so he knows in a way Serie B quite well. Nevertheless, I agree with both of you guys. Like management has chosen Martinez, and they have to stick with that until proven guilty in a sense. Like, you know, if it's continuing to go bad, eventually they'll, if it goes that route, I'm not saying it will, and I'm hoping not, then they'll have to make whatever call they have to do. But whenever not after 1 or 2 games, as Francesco said, because you're just going to lose the player, and it's a write-off at that point.
And I don't recall seeing this in the match, but I can't remember, Fabrizio, if you had mentioned this or if somebody else had, but I think one of the reasons there was a belief that Martinez was chosen was because he's better with his feet. And so, you know, better at building from the back and all of that. I don't remember seeing too much of that in that game, but maybe we just didn't get an opportunity to see it. So
it takes time. Like, honestly, it was only 2 games. One was Coppa Italia, one was the first match.
Totally.
It'll take time, etc. Okay, so let's quickly talk about match day number 2. So we're up facing Benevento. So this is the game opener at Marassi. So am I mistaken, or am I wrong? Or have we reached 19,800 season tickets?
Wow.
That's something I heard. It's like unbelievable.
I don't know for sure, but I mean, the way that they've been selling, I wouldn't be surprised. It was like 16, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, right?
I think they even reached 18,000, something like that, last I heard.
Incredible.
But it's just like unbelievable.
That's a typical for Genoa supporters. The more we suffer, the more we are there. So and I can tell you, because this is the same comments that I got from people I work with also to make the gadget for the Genoa Club Miami. And he was telling me the same. The more we suffer, the more he sells. It's literally that we are like this because we want to be close to the team. It's not like let's say like a negative things per se. It means that we actually want to. We're not the kind of supporters that if the things going bad, we just abandon things. Yeah. And it's also true that the previous owner of the team. Created some kind of detachment from the supporters in general, because there was a bad mood all over the actual team, the ownership, etc. And this new property brought up like a little bit of energy and hopes to see like a different Grifo.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at the last few games in Serie A, when we were basically obviously going to be relegated to Serie B, and the amount of chanting and the amount of people going to the stadium, it's just we were applauded in a way, not to toot our own horn, but we were applauded like from all over the world, you know, quote unquote, all over the world, the soccer world, to say, look at what the Genoa fan are doing for their own team. They're still rooting, they're still supporting their team, even though they know they're going to be relegated. So it's just something absolutely beautiful. So next match, day number 2, so it'll be against Benevento. So that's a second show, again, just in like what, 12, 13 days type of thing. So I guess let's do a roundtable to see what you guys think about what that match is going to look like. Frankie, it's not Fra apparently, but it's Frankie.
So yes, that's a Genoani's Resta nickname. So my opinion is it's an interesting game because we're basically gonna meet the same team that we just met in the Coppa Italia, so they have like a fresh experience with us. What I noticed in performances, I don't know if I believe I already discussed that even before, in both occasions, like with Benevento, with Venezia, we actually show pretty much a good attack settings. And but the last 20-25 minutes of the game is just like resting back, like letting the other team play until then indeed you risk that you get the goal. So that is something that eventually I hope that they realize that they cannot do it. The substitution, actually, they were all good, as long as like to support the both games. So Benevento, they know more or less the way we play, as it's very fresh. But okay, it's also the first games for all of us, even though we just met. So it's pretty much depending on the same willing to actually get in the pitch and willing to do the same type of game that we did in Coppa Italia, avoiding the same mistakes for us.
I'm curious. I mean, Fabri, you mentioned earlier about how Venezia seemed really key on Coda, and obviously he had such a big match when we played Benevento the first time around, and probably why some fans were saying, where was that Coda in the first game against Venezia? But I wonder what they try to do here, because they could do a similar thing and try to take him out of the game, especially because of how much he really ran rampant in the first match. But at the same time, if you do that, then again, you give Goodmanson, you give Ekuban, you give Portanova opportunities potentially to get through. By the way, I don't think we talked enough about that through ball. Was that Badel that played it through for Portanova? That ball was beautiful on that first goal. But you run that risk if you're over focusing on Coda. I don't know what else Benevento would do, though. I mean, I think you kind of have to do it and try to at least make us beat you with other players. So
it's good.
What do you think?
It's really all up to Lesson. Honestly, he's going to have to go on the whiteboard, blackboard, whatever you want to call it, and decide what tactic he wants to follow. Do the exact same with the risk of being so fresh that they'll know how to try to counterattack us, or try something new. Rotation, maybe. I don't know. I don't think there is a need for rotation yet. However, there can be that opportunity. It's really up to also what Francesco was saying earlier, like depending on what he sees on the pit, in the training grounds, to see who is more in shape and whatnot, which could, even though he has his preferred not because preferred players, but preferred for the starting 11.
Mm-hmm.
But it'll be totally up to him, to the approach of how he wants to take it. That's going to be difficult. Like, what would I do? I would probably try to mix it up a little bit, but that's just personal preference.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting if he did. I kind of think that he probably will have the same lineup for the most part as what we saw in Venezia. Maybe Ekuban is not in, but I would think he's going to be in there. I'm with you on that. I think he's going to get that same nod, and then I'm not sure even who you would really replace, I guess. I mean, I thought Pajak did a decent job in his first. That was the first time I remember actually really seeing him and paying attention.
Let me actually bring that up, because as I mentioned, that I'm part of that Genoani si Resta chat, and which is like a jungle now. But anyways, besides that, it's interesting. There's like a lot of conversations happening at once. It's like, okay, I'm working. Half an hour later, 279 messages.
Make sure notifications are off. I'm not even in that group chat. I'm in the New York one.
It's all anytime, right? So, but anyways, I am with you, Matt. I want to hear also what Francesco says. Yeah. Frankie, sorry. Francesco says, with respect to Pajak, how do you? What's your opinion on our left back?
But I think that he is the player that I remember when he was in Serie A. So I no surprises there, and I believe that we should within the end of the season to buy some new players. I believe it's time to get also something on the left like stronger than Pajak, because it's not supporting much as it should. Again, like I had the same memories when he was in Serie A, and he's playing the same, doing eventually some same mistake. It's not bad again, but we need to keep in mind the goal for this season. So we're not here to participate. This is not a participation season. This is the season that we need to win as soon as possible, and with all the strength we can put in the pitch together. And it's not that we can expect to have Barcelona, but indeed we need to try to find the best solution within the beginning of before the end of the transfer market. So It's not bad. Again, I'm not against it again, but we cannot count on him like to keep them to keep in like the 90 minutes as the preferred on the left. We need to have like some substantial like a substitute.
I think his quality is a much different player, obviously, than Mimo or really any player that we've had of use on the left side of the pitch for a little while. I mean, the reason why I initially reacted positively is because I think that, again, it's just the same. I know we don't really want to watch a track meet, but he's one of those guys that does that too. I mean, he's going to be running all over the place. He's going to be fighting on the left side. I think we need a bit more maybe cohesiveness, and we can't have defensive mistakes. I think that's a reality. I mean, we saw that last game. There was almost two separate times that we got kind of penalized in a match. We should have winning the match, I think, is the fair result, but we almost at least had a draw from it because of two separate mistakes that had happened. So we can't have those things, but I'm willing to, I'm kind of optimistic on it. I mean, I don't know, Fabrizio, what you think.
No, you're absolutely right, Matt, in a way that, like, before we just quickly talked about Martinez, but obviously some people can say that if it wasn't because of the defense, the goalie wouldn't have been in that situation, right? So there's always two sides to issues in a way. I mean, obviously it's a little bit of far-fetched type of direction I'm taking with this one. Sure. But obviously if the defense was strong enough, the goalie wouldn't have even touched the ball. So to Francesco's point is we're not here. The goal of the team is not to participate; it's to go straight through for promotion. And I don't know. I personally think that's why I wanted to raise it, not necessarily to have a fist fight here, but to see. No, of course not.
Yeah.
No, it was interesting because in reading also in the chat, I was seeing most of the people that were going not too happy for Payet's performance, even though I personally thought that the performance was not that bad. Obviously, the quality is not what we're used to with Mimo, for example, right. Yeah. Which we'll talk in a second about Mimo. But definitely, I mean, I don't know if they do get a better player, by all means. But I still think that between Sabelli, I don't know. I mean, a lot of people are happy about Sabelli. What do you think about Sabelli?
Sabelli, he is like, the way that he's playing now is a little bit different than we remember, like in Serie A, and eventually is definitely like a Serie B player. So he's playing like way better like now than he was in Serie A. So it's more in his better situation, but still. Isabelli. I mean, we're talking about like that kind of push that is not constant. I mean, he's a mediocre player. He's not bad again, but we should get like it in. It's those kind of they basically decides the two wings that we have. We need to have a good substitute for both of them to basically compensate what they're doing during the whole game. We are not in the position to confirm that both of them are good to keep them if it's needed 90 minutes, because you see they're gonna drop, and they can play not the whole game, but they need a good substitute. Like the wings are important for the game that Blessing is playing, and like Matt was mentioning, the defense itself at the moment is. It's kind of weak, and we did like a lot of mistakes there. So I believe like another purchase like pending that we need to have is there, like a strong central defense that is basically being the Ostigard that we missed, because of course he had to go. But again, nothing against who left the team, because everyone basically arrived like 6 months ago. But as I said, that is the personality that we need there. We don't have it right now. We're pretty much lost there. That's why, as before, we were talking about the goalkeeper. If you have like a defense that is not that much strong and an insecure goalkeeper behind it, I mean, you don't need a big attacker like to basically do whatever they want like in our area. So it's important that area of the team needs to be reinforced very much.
It definitely feels like a potential area of weakness. And there, I mean, obviously, like Bonnie and Hefty on the right side, I think we're all fine with that. But on the left side, like I had more of a problem with Dragushin personally and his performance. And I don't know where we go because, I mean, I don't think we can throw Vogliacco in there all the time. So we have to, I agree. I think if there's a place for me personally, I actually think the center back, I'd almost put even more ahead of the left back position because I don't know about this Dragushin guy so far. He kind of didn't want to come here. He didn't have the greatest start to his time so far. I mean, it's only been a match or two, so he can't like completely tear this guy down. But
and let's not forget that we still haven't seen fully fledged Ilsanker as well, right?
Yeah, well, true, but I don't know where he fits now because I kind of feel like we're going to play Frendrup. We should play him pretty much as we can. And then we're going to have Badel. And then unless we're going to play him in like a center back position and just kind of have him be a general there, even though he's maybe more used to being a center defensive midfielder, that could work. But I don't know. I mean, that would be interesting if we did play him there because, you know, he could almost help as like a deep lying sort of playmaker almost or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Like an old number 5.
Right.
And last one before we wrap up for the episode was, did you guys see my second preferred team, which is Toronto FC, with our Mimmo Criscito goal?
That was amazing.
That was an amazing goal. I was watching it today, and it feels like when you were playing Pro Evolution Soccer on the PlayStation, that you do like the X and then the square. You just shoot and like you do the goal, and everyone is mad. And it's like, I did an amazing action. Toronto basically has been able to basically invest on players that eventually for the league is like kind of fancy so far, like for the numbers by far. Mm-hmm. But he has created like it looks like a good team, like that he works well together. It's not just names, the difference that you see in the league here in the United States is mostly you put a name like when Higuain came here in Miami, like how Higuain is coming. He brought even the brother. He could have brought even the uncle. They don't play the same that in Italy. I mean, it's like embarrassing. The first game that he entered, I was watching to see like let's see some difference. He was throwing himself on the field, like waiting for the referee to call for the foul. The referee was looking at him like, this is not Italy, just get up.
Yeah.
So and the good thing that I see of Toronto is that they created like an important team, and it's very united. It's very united between them. And this goal that they come, this is the things that they basically make even better the environment for the team to do better the next games.
No, absolutely. Like Criscito obviously was not super acclaimed as much as both Insigne and Bernardeschi. I personally think, and I've told that throughout my friends here from North America and so on, that I personally think that Bernardeschi will do way better than Insigne. And he's already showing it, at least in the count of the goals and whatnot. Also, obviously, like, one is on pure number 9 and the other one is a little bit more behind the front lines, right? But nevertheless, that goal from Criscito, this cross coming over, and he was just like, okay, it's right there, boom, without even having the ball touching the grass, was just like fantastic.
Caught it like perfectly, and then just right, no shot for that keeper. I still don't understand where Toronto FC gets this money.
There are some complex things about that extra. I don't know the rules well enough, but there are like 2 different pots that you can dip from, and you can also sell them, buy them from different teams, and that's where they get, I guess. So I don't know.
For the Canadian Sopranos we have behind it.
Well, that should be more in Montreal, but
possibly some that's funny
with Saputo. But before we wrap up, Francesco, where can people reach the Genoa Club Miami?
So they can reach out to our page, of course, in Instagram and on Facebook, which is the Genoa Club Miami. And for any information for how to meet us when they come here, we had like many people even coming from Genoa Club UK that passed by Miami. They sent me a message. We could meet, and even with some watch also the game that we had at that time. So contact me anytime, and we are always available, and we always are happy to gather with any Genoa support that is coming over.
That's awesome. Well, thank you very much for being our special super guest. Please always go and say hello to Josh from all of us. And yeah, anything you wanted to add there, Matt?
No, I mean, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for hopping on, and Forza Genoa.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you again. Forza Genoa.
Thank you, Forza Genoa.
You've listened to La Lanterna, a spotlight on Italian football, a podcast powered by Genoani Resta. Thank you for listening, and see you next week.